We did it.
Nice.
We are live and good to go. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Battle Hymnal, your favorite video breakdown show for UGA football. I promise you this. That is the Battle Hymnal
bonus
that you'll love us. Yeah, this is a bonus broadcast. We're coming here with the Tailgate show. We're going to keep it kind of loose tonight. We're going to try to answer one important question, which is I think really going to be the question of the day tomorrow, which is what does UGA's offense have to do for UGA to win against Alabama? So we have some stats, we have some clips, we have some hot takes, we have, I think, a rant incoming about what it means to be an air raid system from me. So we got a lot. It's going to be a really powerful show. We're happy to have you all here on a Friday night. It probably says more about you than it says about us that you're watching a football breakdown show on a Friday night. But hey, a lot of people are still quarantined. So let's talk about flood. You guys want to talk about the flood concept? Let's start there.
Let's do it.
I've just got a graphic up here saying this flood concept that's been tracked by SEC StatCat, our good friend over there, and it says that this is the most successful play Georgia's running in a pass play they're running. 63% success rate, 16 plays for 176 yards. Counter to that, Alabama is giving up almost the same. 15 plays, 188 yards, and a 67% success rate. So this is a concept that Georgia does well, and this is a concept that Alabama is not particularly defending particularly well. So with that, I'm going to queue up a play from the Arkansas game, and you guys do your thing.
All right. So just to be clear, flood variations is it includes things like sail and more of your traditional flood. Flood generally just means it's a 3-level play where your outside guy on the 3 wide receiver side is going to come either in an in-breaking or out-breaking route at the mid-level, 10 to 15 yards in. Usually your slot guy is going to run either a go, a post, or a corner, depending on what we're talking about. In sail, it would usually be a go. And then your tight end is going to run just a little short, flat route. And it just puts tension on 3 levels of the defense. Now you can see this is a good example of a little bit different. We've got Kyrus in the slot running the in-breaking route at about 15 yards out. But this is a really good way to scheme speed open, and it's a really good way to scheme Kyrus Jackson open because especially against zone, you can see there's a big cushion. Kyrus is just going to sit down into the void in the zone, right? I mean, you have a guy getting run way off, the safety gets run way off, and then Kyrus just sits down in it.
All right. And here's a play from the Ole Miss game the other night, similar concept, and Graham, take us through this one.
Yeah, so you got Corral. He's going to look left and basically just nail his tight end there in the open space. But you've got number 8 there on kind of like a little screen fake type of action. And the blockers are almost too far downfield, the offensive lineman. But the outside receiver and the tight end are both kind of coming to basically the same spot on the field, about 15 yards deep, and just running little in routes. It's kind of like a skinny post, kind of an in route. Yeah, perfect illustration by whoever, but it's putting
the pros.
Yeah, by the pros. But what the bigger picture here is, like, the concept is designed to put safeties and defensive backs in conflict, and in cover 2 man, which is basically a situation where you've got man-to-man coverage on the wide receivers, and then you have 2 safeties in zone coverage up high. It's sort of trying to split the area, but behind the man defense and before you get to those safeties, or also just like flood that side of the field, hence the name, with so many receivers that safety on that side has to choose where he's going to go and where he's going to cover. And so from there, you're going to have an open receiver or a receiver in man coverage who should get open.
Yeah. So this is Sale. This one. And very similar thing to what Graham was saying, right? So this is sail tight, and you just have a little a short out route from Darnell Washington, and then you have what looks like is going to be a deeper out there from Kyrus. And I think the real the mark of the Monken outfits on this play is that you could see Kyrus sees that he's actually like lined up pretty well with the safety that's covering Landers on the go. And so instead of breaking this in at the top of the route, he just sits on it and like kind of runs basically a comeback or a, whatever you want to call it, a curl, a sit, and just takes it from right there. And because he, the other defensive back there was playing so far off that he like would have interrupted the out route there. And I really love this play. I think this is a really good example of what Todd Monken does well, which is option routes and wide receivers. This is an Oklahoma State thing. And I mean, anytime Kyrus Jackson can sit down and avoid in his zone like that, it's going to be positive yardage. And that's like an easy pitch and catch if Bennett sees it.
Yeah.
Here's another kind of, I pull this out because they're kind of doing the same, the quarterbacks are just, rolling out a little bit and finding a guy. Am I wrong? This is a similar look, and, Corral pulls it, tucks it, moves the pocket and finds his guy.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the thing that I want to highlight here, I mean, you already kind of pointed out how Bama has been vulnerable to these concepts, but like, I think bigger picture for the Georgia offense, it says like Stetson Bennett that year he spent at Jones County in Mississippi playing community college football. Like these are the offenses that get run down there. And it's, those guys spend their scholarships on receivers and running backs and skill players. And they run those wide open passing attacks. Like if you ever watched Last Chance U, they're putting up 40, 50, 60 points a game. Mm-hmm. And so his ability to anticipate like where those receivers are going to sit down in that coverage is way better than any other quarterbacks on the roster, just because like he got a year of playing real live game speed.
Can you run that last play again? Actually, the one that he was just breaking down there. See, this is a slightly different version, but I want you to watch 32. He gets caught sort of in no man's land here because he's watching into the backfield, but he's also looking at the screen receiver on the outside. And so the guy running the in from the opposite side just sits on top of him. And I don't know who 32 is. I don't know what number that is, but that guy, if you he gets abused in these situations quite a bit in these clips. And I'm not saying he's a bad wide receiver, or a bad linebacker, but like if you are a linebacker and you get caught, not like there he is, he just ran into his own guy there, right? And he's getting caught flat-footed on a lot of these plays because he's getting like Graham was saying, put in conflict, right? And when you can put, especially a linebacker across the middle of the field or a safety when you're a little bit deeper, when you can just have them anytime they're standing and they don't know where to go, that's not great, right? And so like this play is more of a broken play that like I think like Corral just did a really good job of getting outside and throwing across his body, but I think it's a really good example too of like if you watch just the linebackers, like they don't know what to do. Like anytime they're just like stutter stepping and sitting, like if you have two guys sitting in zone and only one guy in front of them, someone is open behind one of those guys. Right? And then,
actually Dylan Moses, who is
really?
Yeah, who is like supposed to be Alabama's best linebacker.
Not having a great year.
Injury, so he's probably not fully back to himself yet. But I mean, I think the thing that's the reality of the situation is that like once upon a time, Alabama had enough talent at defensive back and safety and linebacker to just like play man coverage all the time, and they don't right now. And so they're forced to play a lot more zone. And the reality of like modern college football is that offenses have kind of solved zones. Like they know how to sit down in the middle of them and pick them apart. And that's what Ole Miss did to him last Saturday.
I have a theory actually watching some of this tape. I think that this is actually probably why Pickens is part of why Pickens's catches have gone so far down, because if Pickens is running opposite of the three wide receiver side on a flood concept, I don't know how it's taught at Georgia, but in most places that would be like your fourth option. Because in most places you run, if that side of the field is even active, you're going to run the deep route, the medium route, and then the flat route. And then your fourth option is either the running back or the guy on the other side. And So since his play has been so successful, it's possible that like Pickens' catches have been going down because he's just not being designed into these plays as the X receiver, right? And so,
well, and I also think that like, there's still an incredible value that he's bringing to the offense because when he is over to the side alone, there's not a defensive coordinator probably out there that trusts a defensive back to cover him man to man for the entirety of the game. So like that second safety in the cover 2 man is having to shade over to him.
right.
And it's just, it's basically opening up 2/3 of the field. And we've got, 3 receivers on two.
I gotta yell about something real quick. So
Please.
I have seen, this isn't yelling, this is gentle criticism.
Okay.
A lot of guys in sports media who I like and think and respect, and I think know more about football in general than I do, I think I've been getting something really wrong in the analysis of this game, which is that I've heard this take from a lot of people. Again, people who I like. So this is not shade. It's just, I think it's a wrong take that, Georgia's not going to be able to stretch Ole Miss's or Alabama's defense because they don't run the same kind of offense as Ole Miss. And while it's true that Georgia hasn't had the same raw success rate and or just like play rate, I would point out that like Georgia ran more plays against Tennessee than Ole Miss did against Alabama in terms of pace of play. And B, if you look at what Georgia is running concept-wise, I mean, we're not just running flood variations. We're running like Y sail. We're running, this isn't a flood variation, but running mesh. We're running on our shot plays, we're running mills a lot. These are vintage Oklahoma State air raid plays, right? I mean, like Y sail, and we're not running Y sail a lot because that would put Kyrus in the go route, and I think we want him on that breaking route more. But Y sail is like the Chip Kelly play, right? And these are not like your dad's Georgia football plays. And just because the results haven't quite been there for consistency reasons, there's nothing about UGA schematically that says they can't do exactly what Ole Miss did. I mean, we're running RPOs with, wide receiver tags is like our wide receiver screen tag is like our 4th most run play. And that is the Hugh Freeze play. It is the Rich Rodriguez play. And so like, It's true. Everybody runs these spread offenses, but the idea that UGA doesn't physically spread the field out enough to do this is not true because they do. And it's also not true that schematically that they don't have the ability to do exactly what Ole Miss did, because the only difference between Ole Miss and UGA at this point is just like consistency and like pace of play.
Right. Well, and I also think that the tempo thing, I think it's there at times. Like Georgia is running tempo. And I also have wondered, like, if we haven't ran tempo in games because you don't need to run tempo when your defense is dominating and you're up by 2 touchdowns. But like Monken, I would be shocked if this is a Todd Monken offense that doesn't have the ability to run tempo. Like when he was at Oklahoma State, they would consistently snap the ball like within 10 seconds after the last play ending. And it was just this blitzkrieg of
10 real world seconds, by the way. So like 3 or 4 seconds off the clock.
10 seconds off the play clock. Yeah, exactly. Thank you for making that point. So you might see some of that tomorrow night. I also think though that like there is in certain, I think it's hard to argue against the idea that like tempo can hurt your defense,
right.
Especially when you have like Georgia.
And Kirby talked about that in the press conference, when he was asked about, sort of that same thing of tempo and what Ole Miss was doing. And he said, you get sloppy, things happen, and sometimes that's your advantage and sometimes it's not, just the offense gets sloppy and so does the defense. And, if the defense is, I guess, more sloppy than the offense, then, it can look, more efficient or more explosive. But, I got the distinct impression that Kirby necessarily isn't going to run tempo for the sake of running tempo, and
absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm more referring to like if Georgia ran tempo, it might be bad for their own defense just because like it's more possessions, it's more times you got to put them on the field. But with the depth that Georgia has, like, I mean, when you're running out hockey lines of D linemen and linebackers, I'm pretty sure if they want to run tempo on Saturday night against Alabama, they've got, I mean, you've got 35 guys in a game that are getting like at least 10 snaps for Georgia on defense right now. Like, there's plenty of energy to go around. But I've thought the entire season that like Monken is saving some of his arrows for this game in particular. So I think we'll have a better idea come Saturday night, like what the identity of the Georgia offense actually is.
And we've said this before, and we'll probably say it until the end of this year, but like something that we discovered when we looked at all this Monken stuff at the beginning of the year and we did this dog sports piece, Graham and I, was that like personality wise, UGA can have a defense that likes to run the ball and has a big offensive line and wants to run power and inside zone and all this. But like if Monken is not a man ball coach, he is not a coach that wants to run out the middle. He's not a coach that wants to run 50% of the time. And he's never done that before. And nothing about his playbook says that he could if he wanted to. And so the idea that I think among UGA fans, there's this sense that like, oh, Kirby's touching the offense, Kirby's touching the offense. And I'm sure he is. And I'm sure that if Monken has his druthers, would be passing a little bit more. But I think there's just nothing to support this idea that Kirby has his finger on the scale, because I think to some extent, schematically, he can't, because it's just, that's the core of this offense is 4 or 5 run plays, a lot of formation changes, and then air raid concepts. And, you know, if we have success in those run plays and we can run them a lot and we don't have to get into those air raid concepts, that's one thing, but that's not a personality thing. That's an opportunity thing. Right. And so to this point this year, the personality of the team and the opportunities that have been presented have been such that like UGA didn't need to air it out very, very often. And when they did, they could. I mean, every time UGA has needed a drive to run down the field, regardless what happened in the inside of the red zone, which, you know, is something UGA needs to get better at and probably quickly in this game. They've done it, you know? So,
yeah.
Well, I have a lot of like hot takes about UGA's offense. I apologize.
No. We love, this is what we're here for, is the hot take, especially on a Friday night.
You have some more film for us, Josh?
I kind of ran out of film because my inside zone read stuff didn't happen. But I do want to show this graphic about inside zone, Georgia offense versus Alabama's defense. I mean, they've run it a lot. It's our number one offensive play. We've run it 66 times for 279 yards with a 50% success rate. Alabama's defending it okay. I mean, they got gouged pretty hard by Ole Miss the other night. You can see that montage on my Twitter if you want. I might try to bring it up while you guys wrap it up and see if I can throw it on the screen. But, you know, 55 plays against Alabama's defense and inside zone reads, inside zone runs, 282 yards, 42% success rate. So a 42% success rate is not great as a defense, but it's not something you can live off on offense. So Georgia's going to have to continue. They're going to need that. You know, they've got to run that. It's got to be successful. The guys got to get on their blocks. They got to make holes. Zamir or McIntosh have to run some, have to take the right reads and hit the hole. And I hope
here's my hot take. Here's what I would do in this if I were Kirby. I would run split zone towards Will Anderson. Alabama's everything 5-star freshman outside linebacker. He's a pass rush guy. He plays well. I feel like if that's the freshman that's in the run game and you've been having problems running inside, I think you just run Darnell Washington and Trey McKitty at him as the unblacked man on the end of the line of scrimmage. Like, and I would run it 10 times. Just because I think you have to, and I think part of what Ole Miss did is that really got Bama is, like you were saying with depth, is like Ole Miss picked on Dylan Moses and they meant to. And I think you have to find a guy like that you can do that to. And, you know, the problem with Alabama in the past is that didn't exist, because if you were doing that to a guy, they just pull him out. And they just had somebody just sitting behind him who's a 5-star. And I mean, Alabama's got a lot of great players. They're still number 2 in the team talent composite. So they're not bad. It's just like, I'm not sure the depth is quite there as much. And I think if you just really start to aim at guys, like, you're probably not going to pick on Pat Surtain Jr., but you might be able to pick on the guy opposite him. Right. And you might not be able to pick on the interior of that offensive line, but if you just keep crack blocking Will Anderson on every snap, it is going to have a cumulative effect.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, I think also, like, we've shown a lot of passing plays on the show this week, but like if Georgia is able to run for 150 or 170 yards in this game,
They might just win the game.
I have a really hard time seeing them losing this game, honestly, just because like what that would open up in terms of play action and, forcing Alabama to come downhill. I just think the snowball would get rolling and, and the beautiful thing about this though, like for me as a Georgia fan is that if we do get up in this game, like I trust Todd Monken to kind of take the cumulative effect of like what Georgia has done in that game to influence Alabama's defense and continue to move the ball and hold
Keep
the ball and put points on the board instead of like just sitting on it and running up the middle 3 times in a row into a stacked box. So interesting.
I know you wanted to talk about special teams, and I mean I know that we're crowd favorite is Kenny McIntosh to get more touches on offense, but maybe he breaks one off. I mean, he's so close right here, and he's just got guys bouncing off of him and stuff, and one guy gets him behind. But, I mean, I think the consensus is this guy is going to be great and can change a game with whenever he's on the field.
I mean, it's been a while since UGA has had a guy like that in the return game.
It's been since Isaiah McKenzie, really,
Yeah, McKenzie.
Todd Gurley.
Gurley could do it if you want to go a little farther back, but it has been a hot minute since McKenzie. I mean, Michelle could do it, but we didn't want him to, and it's funny. He's a weird returner because I don't know that he is a burner. Really, he's just fast enough and he's hard to tackle. He's definitely not your Isaiah McKenzie type. That is for sure.
Totally. Well, and I also think that, I mean, McIntosh, there's a whole nother conversation to be had here about like who's getting touches as a running back, but the dude is literally averaging 40 yards plus per a kick return. Like that's absurd through 3 games. Like every time he catches one, we have gotten the ball at least on our own 40-yard line. And if you look at how like Georgia's games have played out this year, where even if we don't have success on offense, we're punting other teams inside their own 20, and the idea of trying to drive 85 yards on our defense is really daunting. Like, I think that's those hidden yards are going to be a huge part of this game tomorrow night.
I'm showing some of these inside runs. I finally found my tweet with the little montage of Ole Miss gouging Alabama up the middle. Excuse me.
Nice. Well, yeah, and I also think
like 6.2, 6.7 yards per carry on inside runs, and they were just guys were getting blown off the ball and guys not tackling. We're looking at a guy just shoulder tackling somebody and run it through it. I mean, Spencer was talking about it today. It's like they just don't tackle good, and Georgia's. I mean, I think we got to play well on offense, obviously, but I mean, if we're going to beat them, the more and more I watch this stuff and think about it, it's got to be tomorrow. I'm sick of this.
I don't know about that. I mean, there's a lot of things there's a lot of variables in college football that can affect the trajectory of a program. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. The idea of like sitting on my couch tomorrow night at midnight or whenever the hell CBS will let that game end after having beaten Alabama and just like basking in that is wonderful. But it could also come in the SEC championship game. You could see him in the college playoff. I mean, the odds of us playing Alabama more than once this year, I would say, are better than 50% at this point.
All right, guys. I know in our preview, I took Bama, and I'm going to stand by it. But I mean, I'm fired up for the game. I'm ready to see an awesome game. I want Saban there on the sidelines. I do. I don't want any excuses for any team. First off, I hope he's healthy and he doesn't have it. And if he somehow does have it, that he gets over it fast. But I can't wait. Can't wait.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I want to add that I don't think we talked about on either of our preview shows so far is like the Alabama wide receivers are very scary and they're gonna do some damage. But I think like once Alabama gets down within our 30 or in our red zone, that's going to be the entire ball game. Just because it's a lot harder to take the top off of a defense from the 20-yard line. It's hard to get beat deep, in the red zone. And so if Georgia can bow up in the red zone and force some field goal attempts, I think they win this football game. I really do.
Yeah, I think those are two. If you can limit explosive plays and they can't stop the run, that is Georgia's recipe for success. I think that's one of their avenues. I think it's probably the easiest one is just if you average 4.5 yards per carry, you're probably winning the game. Just because of the way the team's built. Any last thoughts, Josh, Graham?
Nope. It's like Christmas morning. Thank goodness we got football, and I wish I could. I got to go to work tomorrow, so at least I'll pass the time because normally 8:00 games aren't good for the psyche because I usually just overserve myself, and usually with Georgia football it goes poorly.
Does anyone want to come over here to this side to the I picked Georgia side?
I know it's yours. You got it. I'm not going to flip now. I mean, I want them to win. I do. I want them to win. Don't excuse this.
I know that. I'm not questioning.
But I'm not going to flip.
I sort of reflexively pick Alabama and Alabama-Georgia because one of the things about my personal lived life experience is that I've been to all the Alabama-Georgia games that we've lost in person. So that does something to a man. You're not the same after that. After 2012 and then 17 and 18 and 19 anyway. If you're at all of them, it hurts you. But I will say I picked Alabama over Georgia because I think it's the safer pick. But I don't think it's. I think in the past sometimes picking Georgia has been a little wishful thinking, and there's been usually one obvious thing where it's well, shit, even in 2017, 2018, it was man, they just got so much skill talent, and it's that's just hard to do anything with. And this is the first time that we played Alabama where I'm I think you could make a real rational analytics-based argument that Georgia's going to win this game. And just that is itself makes me kind of happy, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of media is picking us. A lot of media.
I don't like that. I really hope that Corso doesn't pick us.
I mean, look, man, I'll just put it this way, dude. Barrett Salee picked Alabama to fucking cover and
thank God
to happen. So you can count on the under hitting and Georgia covering whatever the spread closes at. That you can guarantee.
But what we really need is Barrett Salee's take on Saban's diagnosis and his COVID and all that sort of stuff. Because I mean, that's really he should stay in his lane.
That's what we need for him.
By the way, I-20 area from I-20 Eric and Dog of the Blog and UGA Nihilist are talking about the Battle Hymnal right now. So I feel like we've made it. If UGA Nihilist is
UGA Nihilist is talking about us,
yeah, something bad, but it's well, not bad about us, just bad. Everything's bad, but
I do want to throw out while we're talking about viewers. I want to thank Dogs Exactly, I think is his handle right now, but Axe on Twitter, well-known Georgia football Twitter personality. I think he was
he's like a Georgia influencer.
Yeah, I'm sure he was our first viewer ever, and has been really supportive of the show and introduced us to other people. So I just want to thank him publicly for that.
Cheers, Zach.
Yeah, I honestly I'm a little disturbed by how rationally I can draw a conclusion of Georgia beat Alabama.
You find yourself there and you're this is forbidden math. We have to get this off of this is that bad math. We don't want that.
Man, I wonder honestly, because it's classic Chapel Bell Curve to talk about kind of the Western narrative thing. And I feel in this game, because the narrative of Georgia losing to Alabama has become so ingrained in the minds of college football over the last dozen years, I feel there's a lot of people that are just kind of picking Alabama, and I don't hear analysis on why they're doing it other than just they have really good wide receivers. If you can't run for 100 yards on Missouri, I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'll give you this. This is my last hot take. I think this is probably a close Alabama win, but but I will say, and this is probably the hottest take I've had in quite some time. I don't think like 10 to 12 point UGA win is off the table. I really don't. Because
No.
I think I just think if you don't have to get many stops, and you really don't. And so you're just asking your defense to make 3 stops, 4.
You're asking your defense to play at a level that's far lower than what your logical floor should be.
And so the question is just how much of an opponent adjustment do you give what their previous production has been? And I don't know, man. I hate to sound like a coach, but defense does travel, dude. And just like, I think there's a world where I think that the assumption has been that UGA's defense and Alabama's offense will just cancel each other out. And if it's not that assumption, the assumption is, oh, Alabama's offense is going to just light UGA's defense up. But I don't think anyone is saying, like, I'm not saying it's likely. I just think this defense is good enough to shut just about anybody down and make almost anyone have a bad day. And I don't know if that includes Alabama's offense, but I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility.
I do think it's like very pertinent to mention that Tennessee and Alabama scored the exact same number of points against Missouri, because they did. They both scored 55 points against Missouri. And I mean, like, yes, there's a lot of variable in that, but I think that Alabama's offense, like, I don't think you're going to shut them down and hold them to like 10 or 14 points, but like, I think you can keep them to 20 or 24 points.
And then if you get a couple of turnovers that turn into points, and that's always true, but I think if you're UGA's defense, the whole team seems to just feed off of like, you get one big play from the defense and like it might be over, because UGA's defense, that's just how they do. Like, anyway, we should get out of here.
I'm just dying to fade us to the UGA Nihilist tweet. So if we're ready to go, I'm just gonna
fade us out to the UGA Nihilist tweet as I give our outro.
You put that negative energy in the universe. I'm telling you, this game will be comfortable for Georgia fans within the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter.
All right, here we go. On that
hot take.
On that note,
if you like what you heard here today, check us out at the Battle Hymnal or at Chapel Bell Curve on Twitter. You can find Josh at dog_stats. You can find Graham at dog out west, and you can find me at Nathan J. Lawrence, because I'm unimaginative. If you really loved what you heard today, and you want to get more access to these sweet boy stats, you can check us out on Patreon at Chapel Bell Curve /Patreon. We would love to have you. Our patrons all get access to our Discord server, and it is a wild place in the best possible way. We will catch you, I guess, on Sunday or in parts unknown tomorrow. But until then, go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Leg, it's not my fault.
Yeah, that's fair.